Hey there, my name is Anthony Romano, and this video is going to be directed at bodybuilders, okay? I'm a bodybuilder myself, I guess you could call. I'm not professional, don't get paid for it, unless you count whatever I scrape in from YouTube. But as a bodybuilder, you do not want to be anabolic all the time, okay? So I'll explain this after my intro. So, what does it mean if you don't want to be anabolic all the time? Well, it means that there are benefits to being anabolic periodically and bouncing in and out of anabolic states. Okay, so there are many studies on these things. You can look them up. I have some on my page as well. But when I'm talking about why you don't want to be anabolic all the time, it's because there are benefits to being in quote-unquote catabolic states as well. So a catabolic state simply means you're breaking something down. An anabolic state means that you're building something, right? And oftentimes these two processes interact with each other in a favorable way. They'll break something down and then build it back up. And that's actually what your body does a lot of the time. So people who are getting into bodybuilding think, okay, I want to be in this anabolic state, right? They hear anabolic steroids, anabolic this, anabolic that. Anabolic means building, but building fat too is also anabolic. Technically, insulin is the most anabolic hormone due to the fact that it's simply the hormone with the highest propensity to make you gain, right, of whatever it is. It can stimulate the main muscle building pathway, which is called mTOR, in and of itself, but it can also escort glucose into the cells of your body and basically cause fat storage as well. So when we're talking about anabolic, it doesn't necessarily always mean muscle. Okay, so what are some states of catabolism that you would want to be in? Well, for one, there's a state called autophagy. Okay, so when you fasted for a certain amount of time, which by the way, every state where you're losing fat or cutting is a catabolic state in nature. That's technically what it is. Like in its nature, it is a breaking down type of state. So when you're in a state of fat loss, you are trying to get a catabolic state. You're just trying to minimize the catabolism on your muscles and other tissues you want to keep. So autophagy is cellular cleansing. This is achieved often when people do fasting. So if you've heard much about fasting, if you fast longer than 24 hours, your body will start to pick up some autophagy. It'll enter a more autophagic state. So essentially, your cells will start feeding the weaker cells to the stronger cells. And that cleans up a lot of waste in your body. This is why you'll see videos of people doing fast for like a week or so, and they clear up scar tissue. They will fix a lot of joint problems in addition to other perhaps mental problems or other stuff they may have had or inflammation issues, because a lot of these tissues and cells that are wasteful will be fed to the stronger cells, which will, and then it's a double-pronged sword. You're getting rid of the bad stuff and you're feeding it to the good stuff as fuel. So it's very beneficial in that way, and that's the general gist of autophagy. Now, you can get little bits of autophagy from fasting for short periods of time, like intermittent fasting to 24 hours, but most of the good stuff is going to come after a day. And realistically, the longer you're fasting after a couple days is going to clear up a lot of stuff, a lot of inflammation. So that's one big thing of one big reason to be in a catabolic state. Now, when I was talking about that mTOR pathway, the muscle building pathway, the primary one, it can be stimulated by insulin and anabolic eating, right? But that level of anabolism is going to be amplified if you are bouncing in and out of a catabolic state. Because if you're anabolic all the time, your body's going to make it a baseline, right? This is homeostasis in the body. Anything too much, your body's going to adapt to, and that's going to be the new normal. So if you're eating, always eating lots of food, eventually you'll get to a point where you plateau. If you're always doing anything, you will plateau. And it's this bouncing in and out that creates less predictability for your body, and it will amplify the result of both types of states. So I don't do this and I don't preach this necessarily, but if somebody were to fast for 4 days of the week and then bulk like mad, like eat like huge for like the other 3 days of the week. Excuse my dog there. If they were to fast for half the week and then eat big for the other half the week, it's basically a large scale version of OMAD, of 1 meal a day, where you're amplifying your metabolic rate, and these metabolic adaptations are adapting so much to, okay, we got nothing here, we got to be very precise with what we use. That's what your body's saying. And then once you get all the food for the other days, your body's saying, holy shit, we have food again, let's jack up the anabolic processes. So you're stretching and letting mTOR contract basically, and you're boosting all these anabolic benefits. So it's again like a sine wave, like up and down. That's how things are in nature. Things are seasonal. There's a season for reaping, there's a season for sowing. I talked about this in my other video where I talked about keto myths, where the metabolism is seasonal, right? So whether you're doing keto or not, you're not going to want to be anabolic all the time. It will create a new baseline, and essentially you'll get better results from not being anabolic all the time. Additionally, because if you know anything about anabolic processes, that they can feed even the stuff you don't want, like cancer cell growth, if you're anabolic all the time. Like if you're eating all the time, even if you're a bodybuilder or if you're overweight or something like that, either way, perpetually being in that anabolic state can feed the cells you don't want if you're always feeding. So allowing your body to get into the state where you're feeding the cells, you're feeding your body, and then you're letting your body clean up, and then you're feeding and then letting it clean up. It's even, if you think about it, it's even shockingly similar to how things are in nature. If you just throw everything into your room all the time, it's going to get messy. You have to have periods of building up a room and then cleaning it up a bit, removing some waste, and then repeat the process. That's how things work in a muscle building context as well. You want to be bouncing in and out of a cleanup and a build up. So if you're building a house, you don't just start building everything and leaving everything a mess. It's going to be harder to build that house. Eventually it's going to be too much of a mess and something's going to go wrong. You want to balance. Of course, everybody throws out just balance, just do whatever works for you. These are objectifiable premises that you want to think about, that everybody will say, just do whatever feels right, do what you want. But we can be more precise here. This is what I always preach on my page, and even though I'm not trying to tell you a prescription of what you should do or say this study says this, so you should do that, the point is that this is logic, and we can be more precise than simply, I'm not going to go to the level of precision where I say this study says this and try to say that's the gospel. No, but I am going to say this is a foundational premise of our physiology. It's a foundational premise of the nature of the world, and you can't logically dispute that if you do something enough times, it will become balance. It will become the new normal. So that's the general gist you should take away from this video. This video is meant to open your mind to different thoughts and different approaches, which is why I preach so much the ketogenic and fasting oriented techniques. Regardless of how you choose to eat or whatever, you can always dabble around with those and get some great benefits. So consider those and look into these things. Yeah, leave me comments. Let me know what else you want me to talk about, because I do try to make a lot of videos on these things, but not everybody talks about why being catabolic is beneficial to being anabolic, right? They're two sides of the same coin. And yeah, you can't have one without the other. So beyond that, this is the video. Anthony Romano, peace. Don't forget to like and subscribe to me right now. Peace.